up to chapter 12. And as we continued to do the previous chapters 1 to 8, to 7, there are a few things that came up about the law, the flesh, and the spirit. And as you listened, as we continued to learn through, I was listening to the tone of Paul in the words. Words have tone, or a statement has a tone. There is a way I can put a statement, and you listen to the tone of that statement. Even before I express what is in my heart, the tone itself speaks something. And as I was leading from verse 8, our team leader alerted us a bit earlier to start leading from chapter 8. I was realizing the tone of the wordings of chapter 8 to continue, it changes. And when you see the approach of the way chapter 8 starts, it starts by saying, therefore. Meaning, there is something that we had talked about lastly or previously, and there is a presumption that you have understood what we had done previously. Bwana asifiwe. And I tried to go back a bit to the other chapters, and I also realized there are also some other chapters in the same, in the previously, that could also start with therefore. And that was chapter 2, chapter 5, and now we come to chapter 8. If you look back in the previous where we had led, Paul also stated by starting from that page, therefore. And as I was looking at the chapters, you see in chapters 1 to chapter 4, he's talking about the law and grace. And our predecessors explained it so well. And he concluded that by saying Abraham was justified by faith, by believing, and therefore by faith he was justified. And not Abraham alone, but also us. Bwana asifiwe. That is how he concluded the chapters that he was talking about law versus grace. There was a conflict because the Pharisees and the Israelites who believed in the law, they tried to follow the law thinking they will be justified. And then when you come to the other chapters from chapter 4, it talks about the flesh and the spirit, the conflict between the flesh and the spirit. And I want to appreciate what our sister Purity explained on Sunday. And as I heard all this, there is something that came in my mind about the human being. And as we start today, I will explain a bit about that, and then we can get to chapter 8. The human being has three entities. Because as Paul is saying, therefore, he presumes we have understood about the law and the grace and done away with the conflict in between there. And then about the flesh, the conflict between the flesh and the spirit. You want to do that which is good, but you cannot do it. Why? The flesh is trying to take over, therefore you cannot be able to move. Bwana asifiwe. So allow me today to express something, hoping that God will help us to understand so that we can be able to move. Allow me to talk something about the human being. Achieving a life balance, that is the body, the mind, and the spirit. The body, the mind, and the spirit. You are a spiritual being who has a body, that is the physical thing that we can see. And you have the spirit, that is the spirit of God, and you have the mind. And you'll see in the Bible many times the mind is referred to as the soul. And sometimes we confuse. When we see the soul, we think it is the spirit. But when it talks about the soul, it talks more about the mind. So for somebody to be, I'm lacking some words to use. For somebody to achieve or to attain a balance, you have to have a balance in your body, a balance in your mind, a balance in your spirit. And allow me to give a few examples for you to see the imbalance. And I appreciate that I also come from the medical field. I understand. Uliwahi ona mtu ambaye ako kuna neno tunazuianga kutumia ambayo ni wazimu. as we say mentally challenged, but najua mtu wa kawaida atasema wazimu. Uliwahi ona mtu ambaye ako mentally challenged? Allow me to say, nikisema wazimu nasikia kwangu because of where I stand and because of my profession I feel like I'm intimidating somebody, but you are free to use it. Uliwahi ona mtu ambaye ako mentally challenged? A long time ago in Nakuru, we used to have a man that used to be called Kariango. I don't know how many met that man. Agari yako? Okay. He should be very old. I've not met him of late. And those people who ever met Kariango in his devastated state of mental illness or mental challenge, ungeenda mapema. I happened to meet him there because I was a medical student at KMTC. And you would meet him at the gate in his devastated state. Ako mchafu, ukimuona hakai. Lakini ukisikia yale mambo anaongea, akiongea mambo ya Biblia utakaa umusikize. Lakini unapompimanisha haingi. And in the state, actually that is when God made me to understand this. Because I was a Christian by then. I was a medical student and I had gone to that ward they call Ward 8. I had seen those people. And to me, I thought Kariango was supposed to be there. But when you come here and you hear him talking about the book of Isaiah, anaongea yote, naenda nyumbani, ninaenda ninafungua Biblia. Ninaona yale mambo alikuwa naongea ni ya kweli. But I get confused. Why was this happening? This is what I want to bring to us. The Bible in the book of Genesis, chapter 1 and verses 26 and 28. I want to bring us to a balance. As a Christian and as a mtu wa kawaida, ujione na ujiulize kama umeattain a balance. Because that is what actually chapters 1 to chapter 7 was trying to bring on board. And that is why there was all that conflict. Because kuna wale walishikilia sheria na maana hawakuwa na ufahamu wa mambo mengine mengi, wakashikilia sheria na wakatembea nao. Kuna wale ambao walifikiria mambo ya mwili. They would go and commit adultery. They would go and steal because the flesh or the issues of the flesh were overtaking them. The flesh was ruling. There was no place for the spirit to creak in them or to bring into them that this is sin. Bwana asifiwe. So in the book of Genesis chapter 1 verses 26 to 28, the Bible says 26. Then God said, I want us to listen keenly. Let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Note there. Male and female, he created them. But when we read the Bible, we understand the woman came from where? Yeah? Alitolewa kwa ubavu. Na tutaona hapo mbele. But hapa, when God was creating this spiritual man, and he's creating in the spirit together with the spiritual beings, he's saying man, female, and male and female, he created them. Na ukiendelea kusoma hapo, God started giving them instructions. Read verse 28. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth, and so on and so on. So God has created a spiritual man who has an ear to hear, who can commune with God, who can hear God and understand. This is the spirit man. And when in the previous chapters we are trying to talk about the flesh and the spirit, there are these people who could not understand. But the spiritual man understands this. And when we read from chapter 8, as we shall start reading, you will see now the tone of Paul changes and the communication of Paul changes, because from the previous chapters, he presumes that this person has understood. Now, he's addressing a spiritual man like God is doing. Bwana asifiwe. And that is why I trust that today God will help us together to run something and understand this balance. And when we understand this balance, when we continue reading the other chapters, we shall be able to capture something. Because you have to subdue one for the other one to take over. So when I was talking about carry and go and why I've brought this, carry and go, or from the understanding, when your body, I started by saying that man has three entities. The body, the mind, which is also referred to as the soul, nitasema hivyo ndio usipotee, and then the spirit. For these three, and for you to be a stable person, the three have to attain a balance. You have to have a balance in your body, you have to have a balance in your spirit, you have to have a balance in your mind. I thank God most of us are not living in those days. When you used to go and I